resolution. We invite you. When you hear about some elected officials dodging town hall meetings, we asked the congressman and he responded immediately, said he would love to come here. So just very quickly, a non-paid political announcement here. FCCPR, who's hosting this event, we've been in existence since 2016 when people came together to work on the Bernie Sanders presidential campaign. We're a membership organization. We charge a whopping $10 a year or whatever anyone can afford. We have meetings usually at the Guidance Star Grange in Greenfield, and we have one coming up on April 27th. Sunday from 2 to 4 p.m. Everyone is welcome. We work on issues like Massachusetts Medicare for All legislation, reproductive rights, immigrant rights, education reform, peace, making the Massachusetts legislature more democratic, I mean with a small d, and stopping the attacks on Social Security, Medicare, Medicaid cuts. We're working on being part of a national demonstration that people are calling for April 5th to protest Holocaust. One of the senators is saying they're hoping 100,000 people come to Boston. We're looking into getting buses right now, finding out what the cost of that would be. Sign up for the FCCPR newsletter if you want to get up-to-date information. There will also be people circulating sign-up sheets for a new rapid response network is being set up to defend our immigrant neighbors from deportation. Sign-up sheets will be circulated around the audience. Be sure to turn them into us at the end. We'll be having some people with collection baskets at the door on the way out to help pay for this event. So drop $1 or $2 in the bucket if you can. When the time comes for asking questions, we ask people to please be brief and to the point. A lot of folks here, or a lot of folks have questions. And this, by being brief and to the point, it'll allow a lot more people to ask questions. You can line up when the time comes at the mic on the floor. We have to end the question and answer session by around 8:15 so we can get out of here in our allotted time. So it's my great pleasure to welcome our Congressman, Jim McGovern. Only 14 Democratic legislators who signed a letter calling for the release of the Columbia University student.
So much for being here. Thank you so much for caring. And I'll tell you, you give me hope. You really do. But I want to again say thank you to all of you for being here, and a huge thank you to Franklin County continuing the political revolution for organizing this town hall and everything you do to keep our democracy alive. And maybe the organizers can just raise their hand or stand up so we can thank them in person for their incredible. Naming people, members of very select boards and city councils, and I want to thank you. I want a special shout out to my friend Senator Joe Cumberford. You see
Hey,
that?
Joe! Woo! We love you, Joe!
I want to be fairly brief in my opening remarks so I can listen to your comments and hear your questions. But folks, this is what democracy looks like. And I'm proud to be here in solidarity and community with you all. And I'm urging my colleagues to show up all around the country because I think it sends a powerful signal when you actually show up at town halls and listen to people. You know, when people see folks like Bernie and AOC holding town halls in parts of the country that voted for Trump and having thousands and thousands of people show up, that sends an important message. And I think we need to do more of that. And look, there is no time to sugarcoat what's going on in this country. You know, a lot of people hear the word fascism and they assume it means that everything suddenly all shuts down, or it requires an overt act of violence in order to get there. That somehow the daily life stops, that the world stops spinning, and that there's some kind of official moment where democracy stops and fascism starts. Well, that's not how it works. You know, I was a history major in college, and what you see is that time and again, what happens is that you have a slow erosion of rights and norms until democracy gradually, year by year, sometimes month by month, turns into something else. And that is what is happening right now in our country. You know, people still go to the grocery store under fascism. People still take walks in the park. People still go to school, go to a bar. But everything is different. Because once you lose democracy, once democracy transforms into tyranny, it is very hard to go back in the other direction. So the question is, what are we going to do to fight for our democracy? You know, you all watch the news like I do. You know what Trump and Musk are doing. They're gutting the government, dismantling the agencies that serve the American people, and handing power to billionaires and cronies who answer only to them. They are criminalizing dissent. They are purging public servants, and they are targeting the free press. They are normalizing chaos and corruption, forcing us to spend every day reacting to the latest assault on democracy while they quietly consolidate power. This is a tactic. This is a tactic that authoritarians and fascists have used throughout history. They flood the zone. They will try to overwhelm you. They get you to think that you can't do anything, and then they hope that you'll pull the shade and step back, and then they can move in. But none of this is normal. None of this is politics as usual. All of it is authoritarianism in action. And like I said, fascism doesn't arrive all at once. It creeps in. It tests the limits. It pushes a little further each day, waiting to see if people resist. And I think we have a choice. We can be exhausted into submission. We can throw our hands up and give in, or we can fight back. And now, I won't lie to you. I am just as worried and anxious as you are. I tell people all the time I wear these Tibetan prayer beads that the Dalai Lama gave me when I met with him in last May. It's supposed to help me deal with my anxieties and negativity and fears. They're not working. And by the way, I want to thank the members of the Tibetan community who handed me the Dalai Lama's new book, Voice for the Voiceless, which I'm looking forward to reading. Like I said, I am worried as you are. But I refuse to give in, and I know you do too, because I see it everywhere. People are lacing up their shoes, and they are ready to resist. And let me be candid with you. I am frustrated with our side too. I'm absolutely furious at Chuck Schumer for voting against the resolution. I thought it was a terrible, terrible, terrible misguided miscalculation that is only going to help Trump. And I said so publicly, and I'm saying it again now. You know, the bottom line is we could have used that for leverage to get him to stop the purge of our federal workers, to get him to actually spend the money that Congress has appropriated to be spent on the American people, and to respect the Constitution. But instead, they went along and they got nothing. So people want us to fight back, and not to go along to get along, and to pretend that everything is business as usual. So here's my framework for how we need to think about these things as I then go to answer your questions tonight. First, we need to speak out. Every time they try to normalize corruption, cruelty, or chaos, we need to name it, we need to call it what it is. Fascism thrives on silence. Second, we need to communicate better. For you, that might mean talking to your neighbors, talking to your family and friends in red states, showing up to events like this. For me, it means I need to double and triple down on building a megaphone that's as loud as the one that Trump and MAGA have built to amplify their lies, and I'm working on that. Third, we need to disrupt. We need to pick up the phone, and we need to call Republican offices. We need to flood them with calls. There are Republicans in swing districts who are vulnerable. They need to feel the pressure. And if you're up to it, I mean, go to their districts, you know, go to their districts. Help join with their constituents in protesting their votes and their support of Donald Trump and his agenda. Fourth, we need both big and small acts of resistance. Not everyone can march in the streets every day, but we can all do something. Maybe it's making calls, maybe it's knocking on doors, maybe it's coming to Washington or going to Boston for a rally to demonstrate our concern. But we all need to do something. You know, the Dalai Lama used to say when people would ask him, like, what difference does my voice make? My voice is small. And he used to say, if you ever think you're too small to matter, just think of somebody trying to sleep in a room with a mosquito, right? We all need to be mosquitoes here. Trump and Musk want us to feel powerless, but we are not. And the power of the people is always stronger than the people in power. So let's be clear. We are in the fight of our lives. This is the break the glass moment. This is the time to stand up, to speak out, and to fight like hell. You know, and I will just say one final thing. I think as we're resisting and fighting back, we need to kind of recommit ourselves to doing good in our community and good things for our country. You know, while they are acting badly and tearing things down, we need to demonstrate the goodness of people and start building our communities up. And I think in doing so, we can strengthen the resistance movement. I think we also can try to keep ourselves well, so that we actually see that good things are happening in our communities. And we also need, and I say this as a Democrat, we need to remind people not just what we're against, but we need to tell people what we're for. One of the problems in this last election is that for a lot of people, the system is just broken, right? I mean, for a lot of people who didn't vote, they didn't think it mattered who won the election, because their lives have continued to be difficult under both parties. That needs to change. So this is a wake-up moment for Democrats as well. So I want to, again, thank you for being here. Thank you to the Franklin County Continuing the Political Revolution for keeping the fire alive. And now I'm interested in your comments and your questions, and let's have a good discussion.
Hi. It's so wonderful. You can't believe what this looks like from here. Thank you, everybody, for coming. We're going to have about an hour till 8:15. We'll have time for questions. Just repeating what Jim said, or what Dave said. We want to keep your questions short, concise, to the point, we're going to have, we have two mics. Ferd is going to select either one person or another, And some people may have some strong feelings, so we're just going to ask you to be polite and use friendly language, because Jim came a long way for us, and that's what he's here for, is to hear us for better or for worse. Okay.
So we're just going to go back and forth between one mic and the other, and I'll pass this to Jim, and why don't we start right here?
Up. No, turn on the mic.
Speak directly on the microphone.
Is the mic on?
Yes. Very low.
So when you talk to your Republican colleagues, are they A, in favor of fascism, B, scared of not getting reelected, C, scared of violence from Trump's followers, or what the heck?
I think it could be I mean, look, Trump has met with the Republicans and basically told them that he wants them with him 100% of the time. If not, he'll get them a primary opponent. And then he brings out his friend Elon Musk, his new best friend, who spent close to $300 million on Trump's campaign, and says, and he's not afraid to dump $10 million into your campaign in a primary. But here's the deal. What we need to do is make these Republicans more afraid of their constituents than of Musk and Trump. And I think that is possible. Again, if we get 4 or 5 Republicans, we can stop this stuff. And there are a number of Republicans that have won their races by less than a percentage point. These people will feel the pressure. Now, they're not doing town halls because they've been told not to. But then we need to show up at their offices. But there is a way to slow this down. There is a way to stop some of this. Again, I thought we had some leverage with the continuing resolution. That was a missed opportunity. But we have other things coming up. And look, I talk to them a lot. Some of them I've known for many, many years. And they'll tell me that they think he's crazy. That they think this is awful. And then they go before a set of microphones and say how wonderful he is because they feel they have to do that. I try to remind them, being in politics and voting in ways that you think is wrong is not a particularly pleasant job. I mean, don't throw away your conscience.
Yeah.
Thank you. Michael Nix here. This morning I listened to a video podcast in the online opinions section of the New York Times of Ezra Klein interviewing Democratic pollster David Shore. Shore's data from the last election suggests that voters wanted politicians to talk about how they are going to improve people's lives, not necessarily about how democracy is needing to be saved. And that while Democrats are trusted on climate change, the environment, abortion, and mental health, Republicans in this last election were more trusted on a greater range of issues, including education, poverty, privacy, political division, national security, social security, cost of living, the economy, and the list goes on and on. How are you and the Democratic Party going to get your message to the voters who don't talk and think like me? Young people whose daily reality are insular online environments, Hispanic voters, immigrants, black men, rural white men, the undereducated, and the other groups of people who voted for Trump and Republicans, despite Republican propensity for untruth and despite the disrespect for the rule of law.
Well, that's a really good question. Look, let's be frank here. Republicans outsmarted all of us. Starting 10 years ago, they created this kind of alternative media infrastructure to be able to bypass, like the New York Times or the Boston Globe or the Daily Hampshire Gazette or whatever, right? The Greenfield Reporter. They created this alternative infrastructure to bypass the network news and the cable news. And so people are getting their information, in large part, a lot of Trump voters are getting their information from sources that many of us don't even know where exist. They push conspiracy theories, they push hate, they push division. So we need to play, not only do we have to play catch up, but we need to start getting on some of these platforms and presenting an alternative point of view. We need to listen to young people and be present on the platforms that they are getting their news from. And so that requires people like me to kind of get out of my comfort zone. I mean, I'm on Blue Sky, X, Facebook, Instagram. I'm doing Instagram Lives. I'm doing podcasts. I'm doing whatever I think can get the message to people. And Democrats and all of us need to kind of get out of our comfort zones and start getting our messages out through our own social media platforms. I mean, you may have 100 followers or 10 followers or 5 followers or whatever, or 1,000. But if all of us are pushing the truth out there, we have a better opportunity of trying to make sure that voters don't end up going down that misinformed pathway that somehow Trump is on the side of poor people or the side of protecting Social Security. You heard of Elon Musk. He called Social Security a Ponzi scheme. And by the way, all that talk in his joint address to Congress about 300-year-old people getting Social Security checks and that's all a bunch of BS. But the problem is we're not fact checking him quick enough. And when we fact check him, it's not getting out there to everybody. And so we need to be better at communicating. And we have to start talking to influencers and being in places, again, where other people get their news.
That's why we need young people, because I don't know how to do what he just said. Nobody should. Well, none of us do.
McGovern, may I just thank you very much for your service on our behalf. I'm the Executive Director of the Connecticut River Conservancy, headquartered here in our beautiful city of Greenfield. We, our jurisdiction, the Connecticut River, from the source to the sea. So we are a 4-state organization headquartered here. My two-part question for you is, how can we help you? And more to my point, how can you help us? The Connecticut River Conservancy is the recipient of federal funds. We have currently over $13 million of federal funding that's frozen. That's not money that's coming to the Connecticut River Conservancy. That's going throughout Western Massachusetts, Connecticut, New Hampshire, and Vermont, helping private landowners to protect and preserve the environment. It's going to contractors to help remove dams. It's going to engineers. It's going to support our great river and the great people who rely on the river. So we have been hamstrung with funding that was appropriated by Congress well before the new administration, and we need help to be able to get that money out to preserve and protect the Connecticut River. So I'm curious what advice you have for us and how we might help you and how you might help us get the money to the Connecticut River.
Well, first of all, I am with you 1,000,000% about the importance of protecting the Connecticut River and improving the Connecticut River. Your story about the funds being frozen is not unique to you. I mean, this is happening in 1,000 different areas. And I think it's illegal. I mean, this is money that Congress appropriated, and it needs to be spent. The President, we appropriate money, he has to spend it. If he doesn't like supporting the Connecticut River, he go to Congress and say, hey, look, I don't want you to support the Connecticut River, then you can pass a law and cut it if that's what Congress would decide. But he doesn't have, in my opinion, the unilateral authority to do what he's doing. So there's litigation going on. And we're trying, basically, again, I can't file, members of Congress can't file lawsuits against the President, but others are filing suits to get his money released. And our hope is that the courts will act quickly and will side with us on all these things. I mean, because I think it's pretty clear what his constitutional responsibilities are. I don't think Elon Musk is going to take a call from me and look favorably upon my request. But we're going to do everything not just me, but our entire delegation, and the entire region. So we're not going to give up on that. What you can do, I mean, I think we all have to realize that I think we all need to do a better job of kind of informing our community about the value of all this stuff. And I'm not saying with regard to the Connecticut River, but there are a lot of issues out there that people don't quite understand the value. I mean, this whole attack on DEI, for example, diversity, equity, and inclusion. I mean, the narrative that has stuck is somehow this is an affirmative action program for people who are grossly unqualified for doing the job that they have. That's just a big lie. That's just a big lie. And the idea that but again, there are just a lot of people that don't understand the value of a diverse workplace. I mean, I represent the University of Massachusetts Medical School. They have tons of NIH grants, right? That are being frozen. And, and a lot of people need to be kind of informed about the value of NIH, why that is so incredibly important. And by the way, if you want to save money, let's find a cure to cancer. But so I think part of our job is that we need to make sure that people understand the value of the work that is going on in some of these areas. Look, on NIH, I have a daughter 5 years ago during COVID was diagnosed with a rare cancer. And she's, and NIH helped get us into a clinical trial. It's in New York City now. It hasn't cured her, but her tumors are not growing. And the hope is you kick the can down the road long enough until they find a cure. And then everything's good. But if you want to talk about saving money, again, polluting our rivers doesn't save money. Cutting back on medical research doesn't save money. Gutting Medicaid doesn't save money. It's just more costly. And here's the really gross thing about all this. All these things are being frozen and blocked to fund tax cuts for millionaires and billionaires. I'm going to tell you know what? Millionaires and billionaires don't need tax cuts right now.
Questions short and concise and to the point. We have a lot of people looking to ask questions.
Get close. Right up there. Right up to the mic.
Is that better?
No. This way.
Put it on.
Right into your mouth.
Put it on your bottom lip.
Better?
Yes.
Thank you. In the reporting this morning, I read that you've been bemoaning Trump's attacks on small farms. Last week, Greenfield showed a documentary called The Grab, in which an investigative reporter and his team clearly showed a move by governments, corporations, and mercenaries buying up arable land wherever possible, including the United States, because ultimately they know that in future, those who will control food and water will control the world. I think that Trump's cuts to agriculture are intended to drive farmers into bankruptcy, thus forcing them to sell their land to the big boys. When the film showed Jared Kushner in conversation with the world's richest sheikh of the United Arab Emirates and a major force behind this land grab, I understood the connection clearly. Can we stop this?
Yeah, this is a major fight we're having. Look, in New England, we don't have big mega corporate farms. We have small and medium-sized farms. And they're necessary and they're important. And if you don't believe that, you forget how important they were during COVID, right? We need strong local food systems. And Trump's kind of Secretary of Agriculture, this one and the one before, believe that farms should get big or get out. And that is something that we have to fight back with every ounce of energy and strength that we have. We need the farm bill to recognize the importance of these small farmers. And that's why the freeze on federal money going to our local farmers right now is particularly devastating. They don't have this big cushion to be able to just somehow survive until all this gets straightened out. I mean, they live week to week, month to month. And so, a couple of things. We're going to fight them, and I think, again, what he's doing is illegal. But in the meantime, we all need to make an extra effort to support our local farmers here in our region. Massachusetts to get it even to Boston than it is to ship it from California or halfway around the world.
I'm Greg Krujansky, selectman from Leverett, and I want to thank you for all you've done for Leverett, Franklin County, the Pioneer Valley, Massachusetts, and the United States. Please keep up the good work. Using a strong voice against the Trump policies, someone needs to be put forward to grab the news cycles and get eaten by American people. When Trump acts, he's on page 1. When you act alone, he's on page 47. We need people to act together. Imagine when Al Green was thrown out of the president's speech, if another congressman had stood up and started speaking at the that would grab the news and the news cycle, not Trump. We have to be active in doing things like that. In the last election, we lost our legislative power. We will not win those battles today, but we can win the hearts and minds of people. And by winning that, we can gain legislative power again. If we continue to pander to the Republicans with the hope of getting crumbs off the table, that's all we'll get is crumbs. I think it's important to remove Chuck Schumer from the leadership role. Right or wrong, and I think he was wrong, he misunderstood his role. When the people speak, leaders need to follow. That's how it works. The Congress as a whole took a position, and he abandoned them. And that is not leadership.
What's your
It's
question?
not good leadership.
Here's the question.
So I think that we can get vision on the front
Question?
line so that we are
Question?
those news cycles, not as we do today. So what can you do to help make that happen? And last, thank you very much.
So we had our issues retreat last week, and so all the Democrats got together to kind of talk about what's working, what's not. And the bottom line is, most of what we've been doing, I think it's safe to say, hasn't been working. And I think part of it goes to the point that was just made. I think there needs to be more unity. I mean, we should have had a pre-game meeting before the State of the Union. Some people are silent, some people are standing up, and what they did to Al Green was particularly egregious. I was tasked with defending Al Green from being censured. I wasn't successful, but the bottom line is the person who should have been censured is the person who spoke. Who lied and lied and lied and lied. But you're right, we need to be more unified. And the other thing too is, again, lessons from the last election. It's not just that Trump won more votes, it's that we had a whole bunch of people that stayed home. And so I think, we give them to why did people not think it was worth going to the polls? It's because they don't think it matters. And again, one of the things that we have to focus on really strongly, I believe, is telling people, if we get the chance to lead again, we're going to finish the job and start lowering prescription drugs. We're going to expand healthcare benefits to everybody. We're going to make it easier and more affordable for your kids to go to college. And we're gonna take on climate change, and we're gonna create more green jobs, and we're gonna help our small family farmers. I mean, we have to remind people that there's a difference, and then we have to meet it. We have to meet it. The final thing I'm gonna say is that I think this is a real problem in our political system. When I got elected 100 years ago, my first speech on the House floor was on the need for campaign finance reform. I'm gonna tell you. And when I became chairman of the Rules Committee, when the Democrats took control of the House, I made a pledge to take no corporate PAC money, right? Thinking other people would follow. I was wrong. I still take no corporate PAC money. But here's the deal. I get it. Races for Congress are too damn expensive. They're tens of millions of dollars now, every 2 years. And what happens is that people get stuck in this kind of rut where I care about, helping people who are struggling, but, oh God, I gotta raise all this money, and otherwise I'm not gonna be able to be on TV. And so it's like, whether they do it consciously or not, the money part is always in their mind. And as a result, they're trying to find a balance between like, oh, how do I make the corporate interests happy, and how do I help people who need help? You gotta make a choice. You can't have it both ways. We've been having it both ways, and it hasn't worked, and it's basically encouraged people to stay home. That has to change.
Okay, you can hear me?
Yes. Yep.
Thank you for coming, really appreciate it. My name is Rini Rybko. I'm a Polish daughter of a Polish farmer. Really appreciate all you're doing for the farm and conservation. Before I ask my question, I'd like to share with you the postcard I sent to Donald Trump along with hopefully millions of others. You ready to hear it? I'm calling it Ode to Donald. Humpty Trumpty sat in his hall, scheming up ways to screw us all. All of his minions and cabinet too, like zombies, they did what he told them to do. My question is this: it's time to stop playing nice guy and fall.
Yes.
My question is, will you stop trying to legally control him because he's not obeying the laws? Will you go to town meetings for his opponents and point out the laws that he is breaking, point out the misinformation, such as the Haitians are eating our pets and so on and so forth? Will you stop playing nice guy and really give it to him, please?
I like your postcard. And I think it's important that we, have a sense of humor as well in terms of in how we resist. It attracts more people. Yeah, no, I'm not being nice to him at all. And I'm not playing nice. I'm on the House floor every week, because I'm on the Rules Committee, fighting like hell against his policies. And using words that Fox News finds objectionable. They say I'm leading now the profanity caucus. You gotta call shit. Yes, and the answer on are we going to go to people's districts, Republican districts, and do meetings and press conferences and campaign for their opponents? Absolutely. We have to win. We have to win back the House. Hopefully, if we can win the Senate, that in both of them, that would be great. But we have a fighting chance of winning the Senate back. But we have to win in elections. What matters is winning at the end. You have to win in order to be able to change things. We have to have convictions, and we have to stand for something. That's how we're going to win. But when we win, we can't blow that opportunity. We have to get stuff done. Let me just say one other thing. During the Biden administration, we did some good things. We did the biggest investment to combat climate change ever. Some major investments in education. But if we're being candid with one another, where Biden kind of, didn't excel was in communicating. And there was an impression that, Donald Trump was a man of action, and Joe Biden was too old, he was in his rocking chair, and nothing was getting done. So the other lesson is when you do something good, you got to go around and remind people 100 times.
My name is Danielle Letourneau. I'm a Greenfield resident. I squealed in here on 2 wheels this afternoon to try and get here in time after working all day in Springfield. So I feel like I'm here representing millennials and Gen X who are working hard, taking care of children with disabilities, children who might be on mass health, taking care of parents, elders on SNAP benefits. We are pissed and we are tired. And so one thing I'm going to say to this crowd and do after I'm done asking my actual question is I'm willing to leave and allow some of the dozens of people, some of whom are just those who I just described, who wanted to come in but can't come in because we're full, which is a good problem, but I also don't understand. So my question is, what, if anything, is being done to look into any mathematical electoral anomalies in the swing states?
Yes!
Because it is very strange to me how so many Democrats down ticket won while this president won. And what can we do? Because I appreciate the messaging about our, the left's messaging and about getting people to the polls, but I don't believe, and I am not a conspiracy theorist, but I do not believe that is all what happened this year.
Being in the minority in the Congress is that you can't schedule hearings, you can't do oversight, and one of the problems with having the people that we have in this cabinet is they don't want to answer questions. And again, they're busy right now dismantling our democracy, trying to intimidate the press. But I mean, look. Yeah, I mean, you're right. I mean, and I'm telling you that this is happening really quickly. It's happening much quicker than I thought. And that's why, now is the time to resist, not a year from now when it may be too late. Yeah, so look, I mean, I have heard those, concerns raised before, but I haven't seen the evidence. I will tell you that I've talked to a lot of voters, even in my district, who voted for Trump and voted for me. And we did our first town meeting in Phillipston, and that's a town that Trump had won. And the answers, were, well, I like you, I didn't like her, or I thought, my grocery bills were too high. I thought he might do something about it. He's a business person. I mean, the world didn't come to an end the first time around. I mean, those were the reasons that people were giving me. So there are voters out there that, voted for different reasons. Most of them have buyer's remorse, by the way. This is not what they expected. In fact, prices have gone up, chaos has gone up, corruption has gone up. This is not what they wanted. But again, I mean, but life is hard for a lot of people. And I think you just articulated that. I mean, people out there working, trying to raise families, trying to take care of, elderly parents and, trying to pay the bills and, wondering whether you're going to be able to have a vacation in the summer because things are so tight. And again, I think that we would have done better. I think Kamala Harris would have done better if she would have spoken really directly to the fact that while the general economic indicators are going well, it hasn't reached real people yet. I feel your pain.
Good evening, Congressman. You know me from healthcare,
Yeah.
from unions, from pride marches, and hot chocolate runs, and all those great events that we always run into each other and talk about. But I'm here tonight because I cannot get the image out of my mind. In fact, I couldn't even sleep last night of the men that were deported on the plane and are in El Salvador, and they were being marched into the prison by hooded, masked guards in white underwear, and their heads are down, and all of that. And I mean, it's haunting me, it's painful, and to put that in with the young man who was stopped at Logan Airport, my hometown, if I have a bad accent, and he was strip searched, and all of the things that happened to him, and the doctor from Rhode Island, and this is happening now. We are seeing members of our community and families being deported, being denigrated, being imprisoned, being tortured. I mean, and what I have read has been that they had started with what was considered the low-hanging fruit, the people we didn't care about, and yet we care about those people because we have compassion, because many of us know. About farmers in the Midwest who now have buyer's remorse, as someone had said. I will ask my question. Sorry. So my question is, what tangible steps can we do to prevent people from getting on planes, having them leave our country illegally, without cause, without representation? And what can we do now so that we can try to keep our community safe for everybody?
So a couple of things. One is, there's litigation going on.
That takes forever.
Well, no, the judge actually, we don't have many options right now. And litigation is important. And we'll see how the administration applies and doesn't apply the judge's ruling on those that were deported to El Salvador. we don't know whether they were all bad guys, as he says. In fact, some reporting is that some people, you know, had certain tattoos put on their bodies just so they wouldn't be targeted by the gang members. So we don't even know their story. They didn't get due process. So that's one. That's how we're going to get it done. And we're going to, you know, on the issue of Mahmoud Khalil, that's frightening because he's being deported because Trump doesn't agree with what he was protesting. It doesn't matter what you believe about, you know, the issues that are going on in the Middle East. The bottom line is you shouldn't be deported because of your opinions and your views. That's what's supposed to make us unique. And all of a sudden now we're saying people being deported. The other thing I'm going to say to make our community safe, there was a gentleman in the back who had a sign-up sheet to kind of a rapid response. I mean, that sign up for that. Yep. I mean, I signed up for it, but if I'm out here and there's a problem, I'll eagerly go to confront ICE. But I'll give you the I signed up for one in Worcester, run by Neighbor to Neighbor and SEIU. And I get to my office and I got a call that ICE was at the Amazon facility in Westboro. And so I went there. And so when I got there were two other people there. ICE had already left. They didn't have a warrant. They tried to get in to search the place. They didn't have a warrant. But when I got there, what was really, again, gives me great hope was, you know, there was two people there, and then 5 minutes later there were 10 people there, and then 10 minutes later there were like 15 people there. A retired couple, a veteran, you know, the school was out, a teacher, some students. The bottom line is that there are people in this community that are willing to stand up and make sure people's rights are protected. And so that's something we can do that makes a difference right here in our community.
Thank you for being here. Loud enough?
Yes, good.
I'm Allie Wixman. We've run into each other a lot, and I am here to make it a little local for a minute. I run a Western Mass chapter of Carousel Patrol, which is a group. We show up at LGBTQIA+ and BIPOC events. We use rainbow umbrellas to shield people from hate. And there's this narrative that we live in a bubble here in Western Mass, or in Massachusetts in general. And I'm here to tell you it's not true. And I'm here to tell you that in the weeks and months since this election happened, the hate groups are emboldened to a terrifying degree. They're showing up in numbers, they're showing up with rage. People are no longer shy or embarrassed about identifying with them. They're getting cheers and applause when they show up, and we're standing with them at our backs, and they're scary. And they are currently, your staff has an email about this from me recently, they're currently targeting local organizers with their hate to try to shut down what we do to protect our people. So I'm wondering what you and the other electeds can do and will do to protect Western Mass and Massachusetts from the idea that hate doesn't live here, and from the hate groups that are organizing and emboldening and getting stronger and louder while we pretend they're not here.
Well, first of all, thank you. Well, you know, we aren't immune from the hate. Believe me, I hear it every day. I see it every day. Sometimes I peek at the comments on my social media, and it's very clear that you know that there are a lot of people in this community who hold views that I think most of us think are repulsive when it comes to how we treat other people. And I think what people like me and others need to do is we need to show up. We need to be there for you. We need to provide a circle of protection around communities that feel targeted, that are being victimized. We need to work with law enforcement if that is the appropriate step to take. But the bottom line is we have to be loud and we have to be clear that hate has no place in this community. I mean, I don't know what it is. I used to think the older I got, the more everything would be clear. It's the opposite's happening. I don't understand why it is so easy to appeal to hate. You know, so easy to divide our communities, and why so many of us just let it happen. We prefer to be on the sidelines. We can't be on the sidelines right now. You know, I don't want to be. I don't want a country that is divided. You know, that is filled with bullies. That empowers bullies like Trump and
Right now.
and especially the LGBTQI plus community. I mean, this community is being targeted very directly by this president, very directly and in very specific ways. The constant attack against trans individuals is disgusting. And people are, you know, here's the deal. Elected officials like me, but all of us, we need to speak out. And you don't have to have a press conference to be helpful. It is sometimes, you know, when you have a coffee with people, you know, who buy into some of this hate, you got to push back. And I think we haven't done enough of that. But I will do whatever you want. I mean, I live in Worcester. I've got similar conversations with people about what's happening. And, you know, we've even had some local elected officials that have said things that have been, quite frankly, given comfort to the extremists. But, you know, we have work to do in Washington. We have work to do in Boston. We have work to do in our own communities.
Bless you, Allie. And thank you, Congressman. My name is John Remus. I live in Coleraine. I believe one of the greatest long-term dangers of the second Trump administration is corruption. It's very hard to root out once it becomes endemic. Besides the big megaphone, what actual tools do you have in company with Joe Comfort and Paul Mark and other state actors to flesh out cronyism here at the regional level as it comes in from the federal government, degradation of the federal bench, and the use of federal grants as loyalty rewards?
So, I never thought I would say anything nice about John Roberts, but I will. Because Trump's new tactic is if a judge decides against him, he wants him impeached. And Justice Roberts actually came out and said, no, that's inappropriate. That is not.
So going to block the motion next week on the floor to give them the power to do impeachment? Are the Dems going to be organized? There's going to be a presentation in the next few weeks about Congress being able to move on having the power to.
The problem, look at the check that Congress is supposed to have on the president is if he violates the law, if he ignores the Constitution, then he should be impeached. But
I'm talking about the power of Congress.
Well, I don't know what you're talking about, to be honest with you. No, it is a problem. I don't know what you're talking about. But I mean, the deal is that we have to use what we have right now is our voices. What we have is litigation. We don't have the ability to do oversight hearings in a Republican-controlled Congress. I don't have the ability to schedule things. I'm on the Rules Committee, you know, and one of the things I'm really proud about was I was chairman. You know, I mean, we made more amendments in order than almost any other Congress in recent memory. What the Republicans have done is distinguish themselves by being the most closed Congress in history, basically denying people the ability to offer amendments. We're not the United States Senate. We don't have the ability to do procedural motions on the floor without getting the Rules Committee to make those things in order. So what we have right now is our voice in calling out what's going on. I wish the media were more focused on the corruption stuff. I mean, the fact that Elon Musk, it has all these government contracts, and he's decided which state who goes. And Donald Trump reports a Tesla commercial for Elon Musk outside of the White House. That's corruption. That's corruption. And we need more. And I think again, the goal is to increase not only awareness, but to have the polls start shifting more dramatically against Musk. Because I have a feeling that if Trump feels that Musk's polls are getting too low, he might cut the umbilical cord, or Republicans might cut the umbilical cord with Trump if they think they can get away with it. But other than litigation and using our voices right now, there are not a lot of checks that we can utilize.
I'm not voting for anybody in the next election that doesn't have defund SpaceX on their platform.
Hi, I have one concern and one thing I'd like you to comment on. I'm concerned with the lack of coverage on our demonstrations in the mainstream media. I'm sure a lot of us after the election did a major blackout and couldn't watch the news, but then I started watching just plain national news, ABC, NBC. I don't see wondering if there's anything you could do. And the second thing you alluded to, taking back the Congress, the races in Florida, the special races, the election is April 1st, in case people aren't aware. The seats that got vacated because of Trump's appointees, there's a special election on April 1st, and I don't know if there's anything we can do, and I can't find anything in the polls about how Josh Wheel's doing or anything.
Yeah, the media needs to step up, and again, you know, what I'm telling you, it's kind of like the issue with money in politics. You know, I think the media doesn't want to lose access to the White House because, you know, they want to be able to be in the briefing rooms, all that kind of stuff. And as a result, I get the sense that they're pulling back. And so, again, I guess the way around that is for us to use our platforms to get some of these messages out. Again, what we consider the mainstream media is becoming less and less utilized by the general public. So again, we have to find ways that maybe strengthen their spines and to amplify those that are actually doing good reporting. In the meantime, if we see good reporting in papers that may not get the wide circulation, we need to use our platforms to amplify it. And you know, in terms of the special elections, if you go to the DCCC webpage, I mean, there's some information on the various races. I mean, some of the seats that are up are hardcore Republican districts, but that doesn't mean they're not winnable. And again, my experience in Phillipston was that a lot of people have buyer's remorse. They can maybe demonstrate that by voting for the Democrat.
That'd be nice.
Thank you for being here.
Tell Tony speaks.
Yeah. Wow, complicated. I'll be brief. I feel like we didn't get here overnight. I think the past 11 years have been dedicated by Republican leadership and Republican constituency to bring us to this point. I feel that it was done by crossing over the line just a little bit at a time until we got here. And I don't see Democratic leadership and Democratic constituency responding in kind. And I wonder how we do that. What is the line? What is the place where we've stepped over the line? And how do we live in between standing in the streets with signs and taking up a militia against our own government?
So as I said in the beginning, that the Republicans outsmarted us. They started this effort to create an alternative media infrastructure 10 years ago. They're getting out conspiracy theories. They're getting out all kinds of misinformation and lies that are being repeated to you and to me and to others. And so we have to acknowledge that. We have to figure out a way to infiltrate that, a way to be able to be an alternative voice. And that's going to be uncomfortable for many of us because we're going to be dealing on platforms that are pretty hostile to our points of view. But we have to do that. I mean, I guess the second part of the question is, what do you do if Trump chooses to ignore the courts, to ignore Congress, to ignore everything, and do his own thing? And then you have a true constitutional crisis. The courts don't have a police force to be able to enforce their judgments if you have a president that doesn't respond. Again, the founders thought that Congress would be that check. You know, when Richard Nixon was president, Barry Goldwater, of all people, went to the White House and said to Nixon, you know, you're a crook, you got to go, otherwise you could be impeached. And that led for his resignation. We don't have any Barry Goldwaters right now. At least we haven't seen any emerge. And we can't count on the Speaker of the House or the Senate President to actually do their job and to defend the institution that they lead. So what are the options? I mean, I think we need to start thinking about. I think we need to start thinking about out of the box ideas like a general strike. It's easier said than done because it requires buy-in by everybody. Right? It requires planning. But in Europe, there is a tradition of saw that in Poland. When the communists were in charge in Poland, the Solidarity movement, was trying to gain traction. It was a general strike that basically, began to show the cracks in the existing government there, led the way for the Solidarity movement and Lech Walesa to go to power. Again, I mean, for a lot of people, when you talk like that, it's like, they think, it's like they're not ready for it yet. But the bottom line is, we just have. I know you are.
Social media.
Yeah. Right? I've been saying this. This is my sixth town meeting. I've been repeating it over and over and over again. But it's an idea that I raised at a Democratic Issues retreat. Because if he's not going to play by the rules, if he's not going to follow the rules.
We will play by the rules.
Yeah, right. Well, that's my point. I mean, then the rules don't work. The rules don't work.
We know they don't.
The way to avoid this is for the Republican leadership to actually do their job. But if they don't want to do that, I mean, I would love to vote them out, but I don't have the votes to vote them.
Boycott Tesla. Boycott.
Proud to be a journalist. You know what this is? Constitution and the Bill of Rights. It reads, "We the people, not we the king." So I want to go one better on what you're saying. If we go to Boston, we're talking to ourselves. The fight is in Washington. They're going to run out over the Constitution, the First Amendment, the Fourth Amendment, the 14th Amendment.
And here we are.
I'm wondering, what about you? How about you marching your delegation over to the steps of the Supreme Court and demanding that they serve the Constitution, not king? Or take your constituents over there, or we, as the voice of the people, as the people's court, go to Washington and stand around the Supreme Court and tell them the argument.
One is, I think you should come to Washington. Two, I think you should go to Boston too.
Yeah.
Because I think it's important, again, that we realize that not everybody in this state, is like-minded, like everybody in this auditorium here today. I think it's important.
Time is getting short.
Well, the time is getting.
Same 100 days as they get 60 or gone.
Right, the time is getting short, but you need to organize, and you need to do actions that are going to make a difference. And it requires some planning. And so I'm open to any ideas about the Supreme Court or anywhere else. I've been to a gazillion rallies, I'm going to go to a gazillion more, whatever it takes. I'm willing to get arrested if I think it makes a difference. But I want to make sure that what I'm doing is actually advancing the cause. And one of the things we know, as somebody raised before, that a lot of the demonstrations aren't getting the coverage that we think they should get, is we got to figure out a way to make sure they get coverage, because doing things that nobody picks up on, is not going to move the ball forward. So I'm with you. I'm happy to talk to you about, what kind of events we want to plan in Washington. I think we're at that point. We have to start planning now. Yeah. But the other thing you need to know is, as we're worried about Trump, in the end of April, early May, Congress is going to vote on something called a reconciliation package. And in that package is going to be up to $1 trillion in cuts in Medicaid. It is going to cut SNAP by $340 billion. There are going to be cuts in environmental protection, in education, and everything else. And that will be, and if that were to pass and become law, those are real cuts. Those are real cuts. So we also got to fight that too. Going back to what I said, we had 4 Republicans to vote no. We can stop some of that. That's real damage that we won't be able to repair. So what I will do, I'm going to put up. I will put on my webpage, or you can Google the Republicans that won their re-elections with less than a percentage point. That's where I would start. There's a lot of them.
I represent
terrified of what's happening, and we should be. The other thing, though, what I'm seeing is disappointment in the Democrats, in government in general. We all saw Project 2025. We knew what they wanted to do. They're not playing by the rules. We knew they wouldn't. And that the Democrats didn't get it together by now to have bold, dramatic things that they're doing besides things you do in Congress is a disappointment. I think people want, you know, like with Representative Green, that you guys weren't organized is also terrifying. It's like where we're at is such a crisis, and yet it seems like Democratic leadership is trying to play by the rules when the rules aren't being played by. So, some hope, or if you know something that you have to say. For example, a friend went to a town hall that you held a month ago, and the idea of a shadow government, you know, having press conferences outside of the White House and all the other things, whatever that means. And you said it at that town hall, and if we haven't moved on that in a month, let me know. So what's happening?
So we are doing shadow hearing. We did one on Medicaid. Unfortunately, the mainstream press didn't really cover it. We're trying to get one together on SNAP, and I'm trying to figure out what am I going to do to get coverage on this stuff. And maybe we need to bring in some celebrity chefs or whatever gets. But we are doing shadow hearings. You are right that we're not organized the way we should. We just had our issues retreat, and you're right that there's a lot to be disappointed about. When we began our issues retreat, in the morning, we were all convinced that the Senate was going to stand strong on the continuing resolution. And by evening, we were told that Schumer was going to vote yes. And so every Democrat in the House, except one, voted against the reconciliation bill. And our message was simply this, we need to get a guarantee that there'll be no more firings, that you will spend the money we appropriated, that you will respect the Constitution. And we believed that was our leverage. Others in the Senate, 10 Democrats in the Senate, felt very differently. It was a punch in the stomach for a lot of us who thought this was the moment we were going to draw the line in the sand. So, look.
Why wasn't there a strategy to be together?
Well, there was a strategy. There was a strategy. Schumer had announced actually the night before he announced he was voting for it that he had the votes in the Senate to block it. Right. So, we were all operating under the assumption that when you say something, that you actually meant it. I don't know what happened that changed his mind, but he got nothing for it. He got nothing for it. So again, if the Democratic Party were in Europe, there are probably about 15 different parties. So not everybody thinks the same. But the bottom line is that I think one of the messages that came out of our post-Democratic issues retreat was that there's power in unity. And that these aren't ordinary times. He is not playing by the rules, you are right. And we need to realize that. And our strategy and our tactics need to reflect the different reality we're in. And so we are trying to strategize in a way, we'll see what any of this comes to pass, but it's a little bit different. Time will tell whether that happens. But you're absolutely right. These are not ordinary times. They're not playing by the rules. Our country is in danger. This is, the alarm bell should be ringing, and we need to fight back. And right now, we're not fighting back in a way that's particularly effective. And hopefully that changes.
Take the lead on single payer. Take the lead right on single payer. Hit them with the money. Tell them they're not making any money.
People have been standing in line for a long time. Get us all the rest.
Keep your comments short. Get to the question.
Cut people off in 2 minutes.
But I
you.
In that journey, it took 2 months
Yeah.
for the whole democracy
Right.
to swallow it up and into fascism. So there is no time. And we're counting on an election in 2 years. I don't know why we're really happening.
So as I said before, I mean, if we're waiting for institutions to save people, we're mistaken. People are going to save people. And one of the things that has to happen is that we need all people and all institutions to be vocal and speak out. One of the things that's happening right now is that a lot of entities in our own community that receive federal monies that can be a better spokesperson for why healthcare is important, why Medicaid is important, you know, why SNAP is important, are quite frankly a little hesitant to speak out because they're afraid to be targets. And what we're trying to say is everybody already is a target. I mean, you know, the idea that being quiet is somehow going to mean that you're not going to get your funds cut is mistaken. And so, look, I mean, there's no one thing that we can do that's going to, you know, what everybody needs. I mean, this is an all-out effort that everybody has to participate in. And again, if you're waiting around to say that, you know, we want Chuck Schumer to, you know, be better, I mean, he'll be better when his constituents are saying to him, I don't like what you did.
Yeah, right.
I want you to do, you know, and
They
we're
are.
going to hold you to account in the next election. I mean, so the pressure that needs to be brought is not just on Republicans, but I also think some pressure on Democrats is not a bad idea too. But you're right, we're running out of time.
There are next to no young people here. Why is that?
Let the next guy go, that's why.
There's some young people here. No.
No, there's other young people in that line too.
Okay, we'll let the I will make sure we get to them. I won't leave before we get to them. Okay?
So, older people should ask shorter questions.
In this room, a few years ago, I saw 350 people stop the pipeline. They were militant, they were ready to do civil disobedience. That's what power feels like. And the next morning after this meeting, the pipeline stopped. So I want to take this fourth thing real quick about what we can do. The first thing is that no, I have four suggestions on what we can do.
Yeah, question.
He said comments.
Our relationship between each other is severed. And I think that we've all been bystanders to some degree. We've been taught to be bystanders. And it's such a weight. So I want today to be the birthday of our citizenship. This is the day of breaking glass. And I am sorry for my bystanderness up until now. And I want us all to feel like we are different people now. Okay, that's one thing we can do. The second thing is that the government, the shadow government is us. And we can start saying what we are doing, what we will be doing with mutual aid, and we invite the Democratic Party to join us. The third thing is that Bernie set the example of not having corporate money. If Democrats can say that they're no longer part of corporate money. And the third thing is talk to people in Congress, the Republicans, put in their ear every single day. What are they doing there? Why are they holding on to that seat? Be in their ear. Those are the thoughts.
Thank you.
I actually have a question. I have a question. It's a simple, straightforward, academic question. It's around the Rules Committee. I hope you can answer it. Although this is more about the Senate than the House of Representatives. With all the years that were spent fighting to keep the filibuster, why haven't you used it?
Oh.
And that was the whole, well, no, that's a good question. I mean, they should have used it last week.
Right.
They did.
Yeah,
And again, we'll figure, the truth will come out as to why they made the decision, but they had, that was the leverage they had. And they, and again, no one likes talking about the government shutting down, but the bottom line was they were willing to fund the government at current levels for a month while they negotiated a better deal. But that deal had to include an end to this purge of federal workers and these illegal freezes of money in respect to the Constitution. But no, they should have. They have a tool that we don't have in the House. They could have stopped us.
So money talks. And blue states, Massachusetts, Connecticut, California, we prop up those laws in those states. In Texas, they're keeping women down. We are sending our money so that Oklahoma can be teaching that the 2020 election was stolen. Well, I'm sick and tired of that. Can you possibly talk to your blue state colleagues and say, we need to find a way to give some tax justice to blue states? We're sick and tired of having our tax dollars be going to prop up the people in the states that we don't believe in, that don't share our values. So I hope that's something that you can do, Congressman.
Thank you.
All right, and ironically, that we talk about Medicaid, that red states, in terms of percentages, have a higher use of Medicaid than blue states.
Right.
Because
it's the United States of America. Okay.
I'm done.
Thank you.
Is there a way?
I don't know if there's a way to do that.
That would be terrible.
Is there a way to do that?
I mean,
Why should we punish people in poor states?
It's our money that's spending.
That's horrible.
Can't hear you. Can't hear you at all. Better.
One of the ladies before spoke of that movie, The Brat. I'm concerned about farms, especially in New England. Is there a way you can do, as Heather Cox Richardson has described, other states' attorney generals doing, anticipating that X, Y, and Z was going to be affected? Can you say, okay, I know the farms are going to have something happen to them, it won't matter what, it will be some attack. Can you anticipate that so that rather than being caught flat-footed and reacting, you're jumping in ahead? So that's my first request. The second one, I believe seeds will be the coin of the realm. So can you start setting up seed banks all over New England? And third, my request of everyone here is for you all to start doing it too.
so on the seed bank, we should talk. I mean, tell me how we can make that happen. Yeah, I'm not a lawyer. I mean, but I will talk to our Attorney General about that. I don't know whether Congress will take a case that's kind of where something hasn't happened yet. But the bottom line is that money is already being frozen to much of our agricultural community here locally, and we need to make sure that that money is reinstated. The family farms here cannot survive, like the big corporate farms here. They don't have a cushion. So, but I'll talk to the Attorney General about that.
Hello? Can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Hi, my name is Jocelyn Demuth, and I own a native plant nursery in Bull Rings, a small business. I had a small ecology grant, which was canceled by the Trump administration, but a lot of my business is also in trouble because of the Connecticut River Conservancy. A lot of that money filters down to landscapers and landscaper rehabilitators like myself. I don't have a lot of cushion in my business for failure. I understand that Trump, the judiciary has ruled against him, that he is supposed to be paying this money, but he isn't. He is not. He is ignoring the judges, right, left, and center. And so when you talk about the election in 2 years, I have to wonder, what difference does it make? What can Congress do to make sure that Trump obeys the judiciary instead of completely ignoring them? That is the most important thing at the moment. And I don't care about the rules. I think I speak for a lot of us
bend the rules.
Yeah.
Bend them all you want, because our Republicans are doing the same to destroy our democracy. Thank you.
So in Congress, there's no, I mean, the reality is that, again, in the House, we have very limited options available to us. In the Senate, they have the filibuster. And they can withhold the passage of legislation to leverage an agreement from Trump to actually release the monies that are supposed to go not just to farms, but to small businesses, to nonprofits all across the country. Again, that was what we thought was going to happen last week. But that's the leverage we have in the Senate, is the filibuster. And they need to use it. They need to use it if this continues.
We need some outside-the-box thinking, something other than the filibuster, please. It's not working. Thank you.
Thank you.
We're going to ask people to please try to keep it brief. We have to end very close to 8:30, and I know you've been in line for a long time, so let's be fair and ask the question and say the comments as you can.
Hello, Congressman. Nice to see you. Roxanne Weegard from Greenville, Massachusetts. My husband asked me today, have we crossed the Rubicon? So there's a question for you. I'm afraid we have. We see episodes of fascism, more than that, dictates of fascism every day. Look at the average age in this group. We know what it is. We know it when we see it. So the next thing is, one of the things I've observed of being a lifelong Democrat.
She's a lifelong Democrat.
Is that the Republican Party learned how to play the long game. The Democratic Party did not. They started in the Reagan era building the Republican Party. That is my question. What are the Democrats doing to play the long game to build this party to be the strong party that we really can be to support democracy?
Single parent. It's a fair criticism, and the deal is, again, I mean, we had our eye off the ball when they built an alternative media infrastructure to be able to get out all the misinformation that we have to deal with every single day. We need to be able to counteract that. That's number one. Number two, as I said before, in terms of the launch strategy, we do need to be talking about what we're for. Why does it make a difference if Democrats win the presidency or win the Congress battle? How does it make a difference in your everyday life? For that, it requires us to be a little bit bolder, probably a lot more bolder in some of our policy issues. Healthcare in this country is still way too expensive. I have a relative, I have a friend whose mother is, needs long-term care and is now trying to get on the Medicaid. They have to hire lawyers and try to figure out how you do this, and it's too hard. Other countries get it better than we do. Again, we spend an awful lot of money in that system. It ought to be able to work. Somebody before mentioned Ezra Klein and the podcast that he was doing. He actually had an interesting article in the New York Times saying that one of these Democrats need to do is make government work. It has to work for people. We talk about, mass transit, we talk about better rail systems, we talk about it, but sometimes it just never happens. And people get tired of that. People want to see action. People give Trump credit for getting stuff done, even though I don't agree with what he does. In the polling, it shows that people are saying that he's a guy who actually gets stuff done. And they disagree with him. But we need to be the party of making government work for people, making people's life better.
Good stuff.
One of the things we need to do for the long game is make
Let's
sure
let the young
that
people
our
talk.
police, that our U.S. Marshals, that our Army, we have their back when they're given a wrong order. We need to send that message strongly to these people.
Next. Can you let these young people talk? Can we hear from the young people? Yeah.
Hi. Thank you so much for being in town here, Greenville. My name is Todd Bain. I live here all my life. I'm probably the only conservative in the room. I'm not positive. There have been 2 assassination attempts on Donald Trump what happened to toning down the rhetoric? Do you feel that Americans are prepared for the troubles that will follow a successful assassination of a sitting president? Thank you.
Thank you for being here, and thank you for your comment. Look, I don't think anybody here condones violence.
They should send that boy to fucking.
I think that was,
so he shoots better.
And nobody should be subject to an assassination attempt, no matter what your beliefs are in this country. But with all due respect, when you talk about toning down the rhetoric, this is the current occupant of the White House referred to CNN and MSNBC, as enemies of the state. He referred to our own senator here with a slur during his joint address to Congress. He calls people stupid. He comes up with all kinds of nicknames to bully people. And so, with all due respect, the passion and sometimes the reaction you hear is that people can't believe that somebody who is occupying the office of presidency is saying the things that he's saying. I mean, and the bottom line is, he can set an example by ending that kind of rhetoric. What I say is, again, read your history, read your world history. What we see happening right now is right out of the playbook of authoritarians. Look, it's no secret he likes Putin, right? Because he wants the power of Putin. But I'm going to tell you, that's not what this country is about. So yeah, you can have a disagreement, but I respect you for being here, and I applaud you for saying what you believe, but I'm telling you what I believe. So, but thank you. I'm not leaving until they do it.
Yes, I know.
Hi.
Oh.
Thank you. Can you hear me?
Oh, sir.
Can you hear me? Thank you. And I have sort of two questions. One builds on something somebody else was saying earlier about the idea of having a shadow government for the Democrats. And I guess I'm wondering if it would be possible to have a daily recap of the 5 to 10 most egregious actions of the Republicans and maybe have it in a podcast or something like that. I think that maybe it's not possible because you're not in a position to have oversight to be able to, I just read that in the New York Times, the idea that you could force the Congress to vote every time Trump refuses to spend appropriated funds.
So they may have the ability to do that in the Senate. We don't have that ability to do it in the House. And the other thing is, I've suggested to Hakeem Jeffries that, that he ought to do a daily press briefing. The good, the bad, and the ugly, so that people are informed. And again, hopefully, these shadow hearings will catch on and people actually know they're happening. But we're trying to do that.
Thank you.
Hi, can you hear all of me?
Yep.
Okay.
Closer.
All right, so louder. So I am standing here as one of two black people in this room. And I am really concerned about what we're seeing as the Trump administration tries to basically erase black people from this country.
That's right.
Jeffries for years, and I really like him. He is not up to the task.
No.
I am waiting for someone to stand up and stand for black and brown people and indigenous people.
Why doesn't AOC have a leadership
I'm
position?
waiting for that to happen, and it's not happening. And I'm deeply concerned that we are going to live in a society where the contributions of black and brown and indigenous people to this country are completely erased. What is Congress doing? And get a new leader. Jeffries is a great guy. He is not the man for this moment.
Yep.
his DEI executive order. Arlington National Cemetery is now kind of erasing any reference to black or women leaders, right? And so this is real, and yeah, I mean, the pushback needs to be much stronger and much more effective. I will just say this: I'm not giving up on Hakeem yet. I think I really do. You know, we had a really good conversation over the issues retreat. I think his life is much more complicated because his fellow New Yorker ruined the moment. But I think you're going to see him grow into this role really quickly, and I'm not ready to give up on it. I still support it.
Better be quick.
Well, one thing is, I just want to say there is a national strike being planned. It's on through social media stuff, and if you're interested, I can send you guys or you the link. And then my question is, what is being done? What will be done? What can we do to secure the upcoming elections? For instance, the one in Wisconsin coming up. Because we can't have that messed with, and we are a shadow government of the people. Everybody needs to wake up and act. I agree, Daniel. Thank you.
So the national strike that I'm envisioning requires much more planning than the one that's coming up. Because it requires everybody to buy it. It requires the participation of all our unions, people in the private sector. It does require a monumental effort. So, but I support what's happening. April. Yeah. So, but I don't think I don't think we're able to get it all together by then to have the impact.
What about conversation about it?
We ought to have the conversation. The conversations ought to occur on that. And then the second. Whatever. I just lost my train of thought.
Well, I'm not sure. Why can't there be something before April 1st? Reach out to them or have it be just again thinking outside the box, blasting it because it's critical.
Yeah. No. I'm all for amplifying it. I'm just simply saying that to stop this guy, everybody needs to be in. What? Yeah, and we should start with that. But I mean, that could be the first of many. But building up to the point where we can get all buy-in. Who was the second?
Well, it was just
the election in Wisconsin. One is, if people have the ability or the time, you should go to Wisconsin and be a poll worker, be a poll watcher. To be there to guarantee the integrity of these elections.
And maybe you all should as well. Everything.
Yeah, well, I think we all should. We'll work with the senators from Wisconsin to see whether or not we can be of help. We can get volunteers out there and man all the polls. I think we're going to have to do that even here in Massachusetts. In the election coming up in a couple of years.
I think we need some more.
We have a request. So this is just putting it out. We've had a couple of young people get in line toward the end, unfortunately. And I'm wondering.
We got three right here. Three right there. Dr. Duskey.
My name is Chelsea, and I'm a public servant in the beautiful town of Monterey.
Louder. We can't hear you. Oh.
Under the Department of Education, I was in the PCLF program where I always paid my loans on time every month. Now I'm looking at paying 3 times what I was paying on the plan. I was 6 years into the 10-year forgiveness plan. I'm a working mother of 3 children who can't afford not to be on a public student loan forgiveness plan. How will Mass help someone like me if the federal government has failed?
How will Massachusetts help you? We can talk to Senator Cumberford and to the governor, but we need to find a way to make sure that your situation is respected. And so we're not done yet with fighting to try to get the federal government to do the right thing. But maybe we can exchange information before this is over with. We can just stay in touch, and I'm happy to talk to the state legislators and to the government.
Thank you.
I was pleased to hear you talk about shadow hearings that no one's paying any attention to. But you can keep doing that. I don't think you'll get more attention. Have you considered what other people have talked about, doing what they do in England and Australia and Italy, having a shadow cabinet, an entire 10 or 15 different Republicans who are chosen as a shadow Secretary of Defense, a shadow Secretary of Labor, as official spokesman on each issue. Could that
So that issue has actually been raised, and we're talking about it. I think it's a good idea. I'm not sure it's going to get more attention than the shadow hearings that we're doing. One of the things we're talking about with the hearings is taking them out of Washington and taking them on the road to, swing states in particular.
That's a great idea.
Having these conversations, talking about Medicaid in states that are red, where a high number of people are on Medicaid. We're talking about SNAP. I do a lot of work on food insecurity and hunger, and we had the chairman of the budget committee come before the rules committee saying that there was $340 billion of cuts in SNAP, and I asked him, I said, have you ever met and talked with anybody on SNAP? He says, of course I have. I said, you must know what the average SNAP benefit is. And he gave me this blank stare. I said, you don't? But you have $340 billion worth of cuts? I said, the average benefit right now is a little over $2 per person per meal. You can't even buy a cup of coffee for that. And with your cuts, you want to bring them down to about $1.50 per person per meal. I mean, how do you do that? How do you do that? People on SNAP, he said, well, we want more people to work. Well, the majority of people on SNAP are children or seniors.
Right.
We can repeal the child labor laws, or we can send grandma back to the factory. But the bottom line is, of those who are able-bodied, the majority of them work. They work, and they still need the benefit. And by the way, many of them with the benefit end up in food pantries mid-month. So, I mean, the idea that you're looking at cutting benefits, like food benefits for people, pay for tax cuts for billionaires, is unconscionable.
Thank you for coming and speaking to us. I'm Quentin Jones, a student at Four Rivers Charter Public School. First, I'd like to thank you for all that you've done for me and my peers. You spoke to us in D.C., you spoke to us on the March for the Food Bank, and that's been wonderful. I feel enfranchised by you and by people like you who respect us. And so here's my question. My peers and I are beginning the steps in resisting. So we've started a political action club that's going to kick off tomorrow. And I'm just wondering, how and where should we put our energy? How and where, from your view in Washington and in our state, are we most powerful?
First of all, thank you for doing that. Thank you for waiting. And I think for all of that, you're getting a lot of applause here, because, I mean, again, it gives us great hope that, your generation is stepping up to the plate and understanding what's at stake here. I think your voices are particularly powerful because we don't always hear them. I think you also can be very helpful to all of us that help people like me figure out how better we can communicate with people like you. I mean, like, what platform should we be on? Who should we be talking to? How do we actually engage young people in a way that is effective, that works? The other thing is, look, we need pressure on members of Congress, and we need, quite frankly, if you're able to go to places to speak to other people, I mean, you have credibility because of who you are that people like me don't have. I'd love to sit down, and if you got an organization that's meeting, I'd love to sit down, we can strategize and talk about what things are going on. But we need you. We can't be successful without you. And we need to make sure that young people have not only have a stake in what's going on here, but we need politicians to understand that if you vote, you matter. And if we don't pay attention to that, then we're out. So we need this follow up, okay?
Hi, I'm Hazel. I also attend Four Rivers School here in Greenfield. And I second all that Quentin just said, and we're really fortunate to attend a school that helps us grow intellectually, emotionally, and socially, but not all schools are like that. And there's right now, the funds with the Board of Education, it's all being changed and dismantled. And I'm really curious about what your plan is to like create more and more equitable like experience for all Massachusetts students, and it's particularly in like high poverty areas. And
no, that's a very good question. Thank you. One is we need to make sure our local school leaders are not intimidated by this moment, and we encourage the kind of thoughtful discussion that we're hearing here today. I'm worried that some of our local superintendents, that some of our, I'm not talking about here, but in general, are afraid of losing federal funds or being targeted if they, actually host events where you talk about civics, where you talk about what's happening in the world, where people get a chance to express themselves. Again, a lot of the funding for schools comes from the state, and we're gonna, we have some great leaders that are fighting to make sure that federal money comes. Some of it obviously comes locally, and you want to make sure that your city councils and your select boards are making sure that they don't cut back on education funding. To our schools are incredibly important, and you're 100% of our future. I mean, be sure to get the best education possible. And on the federal level, I think it is blatantly illegal for Donald Trump, or the head of the World Wrestling Foundation, to shut down the Department of Education, and there's going to be a lot of resistance around that. But I look forward to continuing this conversation.
My name is Max. I'm a resident of Greenville. I moved here from Texas 5 years ago. I am trans. I live with the reality that I probably won't move back to Texas ever. And, it's not funny. And I live in Massachusetts, and I think about the fact that I might have to move from here someday. And hearing that we need to wait 2 years until elections happen, when you have your Black constituents and your trans constituents, your students who don't have that time. And I know how important food security is to you. Our farms that have workers on H-1B visas, they're not going to go to work, and we're not going to have food, and we don't have time. And I don't have a question, I just have the research that I've done is, look at South Korea and their parliament literally blockading doors to stop a coup, or Whitney Davis in Texas pulling a hacker for 13 hours to stop abortion bans. And we're just going on for 1 hour filibusters, not even using our filibusters anymore. I hear that you're a rules guy, but echoing everybody else, we don't have time for rules, and I would love to
First of all, I'm not asking anybody to wait 2 years. But we have to win back the House, we have to win the Senate 2 years from now. But that doesn't mean we do nothing but focus on that for 2 years. There's lots of stuff that we can do right now. I mean, some of it's litigation, some of it is protests, some of it is, is just showing up and using our voices. Yeah, I'm on the Rules Committee. I guess I'm a rules guy. But you look at somebody who has been arrested 4 times already. But sort of I thank my parole officer for letting me join you here. And I'm willing to do that, right? I'm willing to do that. All I'm simply saying is we got to plan this stuff. We got to be thoughtful. We got to make sure that our resistance and our protests, and yes, even our civil disobedience, moves the ball forward. That that people are paying attention. Because otherwise, we're doing things for the sake of doing things. And again, there's a lot of organizing going on. Even today, again, I go back to the issue on, the rapid response team, or when ICE comes into a business, or comes into a hospital, or comes into a school. There are things that we can do locally to resist, to help protect people. So, look, I welcome any suggestions that you have. I have an office in Northampton. I have one in Leominster, one in Worcester, and obviously one in Washington. Call me, or come and see me. I don't have a monopoly on all good ideas. I'm there up close and personal, and it's scary as hell to listen to some of the stuff that's being said and to see what's being done. And it's heartbreaking to see the pain and the uncertainty and the insecurity being caused to my constituents. Layoffs at local regional offices. People think that public servants and public employees are all in Washington. The majority of them are all around the country. and they work hard, and they do a good job, and and they deserve our backing and our support. So, but I look forward to the conversation, and thank you for being here. Can we do it? Can we do a rapid turn? Okay. Okay, all right.
So thank you. I have a tremendous sense of urgency, as you have mentioned. I think we're out of time. I think the government is corrupt. The playbook's been thrown out. We've lost control of the media. The judicial system is rotten. Legislation and elections are wonderful to work towards. However, we the people are the only ones we can turn to at this time. We are out of time. In my opinion, we need to disrupt, dislodge, and depose this king. What everybody has a weak point. What is the weakest point of this king?
My name is Sowwy. I also go to Florida Rivers Charter. The youth that have spoken before me have. I'm also transgender, and that's sort of a scary thing to say, like in this world right now. I love to play sports. I love to exist as, myself. But I see there are these executive orders that are being made that are, trying to stop that. And I also see that this state is trying to fight those executive orders. And my question is, are states fighting back against executive orders more of a temporary solution because of the federal threat of budget cuts? And what can we do as youth to help the state fight against executive orders in the long term?
Good to see you again, Congressman. Wow. So, look around. I never thought. Yeah. I never thought I'd see so many white hairs. And now we come to the thing of believing in the seventh generation, which is what I believe in, and that is extending our hand back to the youth to help facilitate their needs, but also use their expertise in areas that some of us can't even begin to imagine if they're just not for that. So here's my question. What do we do to reach back to help bring this younger generation forward? Because we've got this. We've got enough experience in this room. So what can we do? And the question to you, in the meantime, what can you be doing to reach across the aisle and work with your Republican colleagues to help get us out of this?
We're not answering, we're just doing rapid fire.
Okay, my name's Trixie. Can you hear me? I went to dinner with that woman who said you have to bring the youth in. I'm asking you to reach right in your office with the young people answer the phone there. They can help. We need to stop the pecking order that goes on with age and seniority and start. We gotta break outside of this box. These young people need to be brought forward. They need to guide you in how to communicate. You've got the experience, you've got the wisdom, you need the young people to bring you forward. I believe we have already surpassed, we're in a constitutional crisis. We don't have time. We can't wait for elections. We can't wait for anything. We've just got to start moving. Thank you.
Thank you.
Congressman, I haven't heard the word genocide. Kamala Harris wants the world's most lethal military and a continuation of an unconscionable policy. Do you see any way that the Democrats could actually become a peace party?
On where is the king's weak spot? I think it's his vanity. very thin skin. You can't, you can't take an insult. You can throw insults at people, but you can't take one. You can throw a punch, but you can't take one. And you see how unnerved he gets when somebody gets the best of him. And I think we need to continue to try to unnerve him. On the issue of should states, object to executive orders, yeah, I do think that we should. I do think they should. And I'm really, I got to tell you, this focus on transgender sports is such a ridiculous thing for us to be spending so much time focused on. If you really were worried about fairness in sports, where were you when the fact that girls' locker rooms were always underfunded as opposed to boys' locker rooms? Where were you when girls were subject of sexual abuse by coaches and by other people in the athletic environment? And it's like, this is it. And let me just say one final thing. When people say, we should avoid talking about this or avoid talking about that, if we are not for defending the rights and dignity of every single person on this planet, then we might as well go home. It's just not worth it. Yeah, absolutely. And I hope some of the young people that spoke here today will take me up on my offer and sit down and let's have a conversation about ways we can better organize amongst younger people. And then on the issue of I assume you were talking about the Middle East. Is that what the focus? Yeah. Look, I think what's happening in the Middle East is unconscionable right now. I think Israel bombing, using 2-ton bombs on Palestinians in Gaza is outrageous. I think it's a war crime. I believe in the security of the people of Israel, but I believe in the security and the dignity of the people of Gaza. And the Palestinians deserve to have their respect. I led the effort in Congress not to defund the ICC. I think the International Criminal Court is important and it's objective. I'm one of only 2 people in Massachusetts to vote not to send Netanyahu any more weapons. I just today. Signed onto a resolution of disapproval on the latest weapon sales to Israel. They tried to bypass Congress. We Democrats need to be the party of human rights, and we need to be the party of peace. That's why I think it's important to continue to talk about what's happening to people in Gaza. And by the way, that's just one of many places around the world where human rights violations are occurring on a regular basis. I'd like to believe that if we stand for anything, we stand out loud and foursquare for human rights. People are counting on us. I co-chair the Human Rights Commission. I'm getting calls from all around the world saying, what the hell is happening to you people? In any event, I'm sorry, I'll stick around and talk to you individually, but I know I got to wrap up here. Let me just close by saying this. I used to have a history teacher who used to end every class by saying the same thing. They'd say, remember, the world will not get better on its own. When I took this class, I had no idea what the hell he was talking about. I do now. And I believe we can stop this. I really do. But it's going to require all of us. And I'm going to tell you, I'm going to fight like hell. They want to fight, I'll give them a goddamn fight. Fight every day. So thank you so much for coming out tonight.
We want to thank the Congressman, but also the people collecting money. FCCPR doesn't get any government funding. We don't take any grants from anyone. It comes out of everyone's pockets. And it costs about $650 to rent this auditorium and put this event on. So if you can throw some money in the bucket, it would be helpful. And I think the other thing,
do you want to talk to him?
Newsletter, because it's very clear.
Go up.